All right, so we are back at the code again, and this is the final and the most exciting part. So let's go to, once again, just as a refresher, function, and this is where I'm actually putting all my gravity functions. So it is under inc, and this is our man right here, gravity functions. And now let's go all the way to the bottom. So this is basically the part where we use this hook to go to the next step, which is the last actions to be performed after PayPal sends us a success message. So to learn more about this hook, we can go here, right here, and there's some examples here to be used. But one thing I should caution you about this example is that see this RGAR function, it's their own custom function they use to collect the data and put them into variable. This stuff did not work for me. Well, for the numeric ones it worked fine for me, but when it comes to these literal ones, like let's say payment status, payment date, whatever, when I put them there, it ended up failing the entire function. So this is what I chose to do. So this membership payment processing is the function attached to this hook. So let's go find this guy. Right here. Okay, and these are the default parameters, and whatever I showed you here, all these parameters are the content of this entry variable, right? So I simply used that as an array, and it all worked fine. I did not have to use their fancy RGAR function. So I actually asked Gravity Form support about this, and I did not get a satisfactory answer. So I went with this. This is working perfectly. All the information, I put it in a variable and then move to the next step. Here I am checking for the transaction success, transaction status, and or transaction status. So now the reason for this or here is PayPal sends paid as a status for a single payment, and active as a status for a subscription payment. So here I'm covering both of them. So once I have them correct, one thing is common for both type of transaction that we're doing is publishing the post or the list. So basically, using this ID, we are finding that custom post type listing and changing the post status from draft to publish. And that's the reason as soon as the transaction is successful, we just see the result right here, right? It just shows up. So now I am actually finding out whether it's a single type of payment or a recurring or a subscription payment. So for the subscription ones, not much to do. It's a, without ending, don't have to shut it down at any point. So here I'm just throwing in some variables and sending myself an email. This is where your email should go. I mean, I just have it temporarily disabled, but because of these emails are being generated, right, with all the data. And one thing to remember, I had to use this additional add filter, WP mail content type, set email to HTML, so that when I use the HTML in my code, it actually shows up as HTML here, right? So that's something extra I was putting in. And now let's go. The actual action is happening with the single transaction, because this is where we are setting a timer to our published post. So basically what I'm doing is I'm actually declaring a variable here, minutes, and according to these numbers, I'm setting the time to the variable. For example, here, payment page, as you can see, these drop downs, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, but they have attached time to that. So this is what I am actually converting. I'm taking 1 and attaching it to 5 for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, blah blah blah. But while working with this, I actually found a problem, an error in this code. Anyway, so let's get to that. This variable, I'm actually bringing it here, and this WP schedule single event, this is a cron function, WP cron, right? Whatever you're seeing is WP cron, and this minute I am actually adding here, and this is where we went wrong, because we thought it was going to be a 5-minute one, but here it should have been a multiplication to make that 5 minutes. That 5 and multiplied by 60 seconds, that's 5 minutes. But when I was turning that stopwatch on, within a minute or so, it just came up, because it was actually doing it for 60 plus 5, 65 seconds. So anyway, so now we fixed that. And this is an event, the unlist event. This is the important one to move to the next step. But before we explain this, let's look at this array. So basically, to this scheduling function, we are sending whatever parameters we like to send, so that it actually happens. And this is a custom hook that we just generated. Let's go up. This is beyond the this membership processing, or the fulfillment hook function. It's above here. This is an add action function. We are creating this hook, custom hook, and with this hook we are attaching this function. Before we check out this function, something to notice here, this number 4 must match this. However many parameters you're sending, if you're sending 1, that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. And also remember, this needs to be correct, because this is the custom hook that we just created to launch our WP cron function. And now let's go look at what perform unlist now is doing. So if everything goes right, then this function gets launched, and same parameters are being passed. And here I'm just using the post ID to create the title, so that I can send myself. For example, this is the email. This is the email I created, and this is the title I created using that function. Right here. And the most important part is using that post ID, we are finding that post which was published, and now we are find that list and converting that into a draft mode. So that's why it just vanishes from the published list items. So once that is done, then the rest is pretty simple, using the variables, creating this note, and sending myself an email. This is where your email should go. And here's another thing that a mistake I just caught. Basically, let's go back to that email, and here's a payment amount. I'm actually putting some sort of an ID. So if we check, yes, transaction ID, but what we meant was transaction amount. So it's a good thing I'm making this video. Now I get to fix my code also. So let's go and change that. Boom. And that's pretty much all there is to say about this prototype. And thank you for your patience for sitting through the whole thing. See you later.